A lot of people talk about brain rot, but what actually is it? Brain rot is a term that's been around for centuries to describe a number of mental health conditions in which a person appears to be literally rotting from the inside out. This can take the form of extreme nihilism, depression, apathy, self-destructiveness, dissociation, and even psychosis. So just what exactly is going on when someone has brain rot? However, some scientists believe that when you die, your genes send one last message, a final instruction. They theorize that when this final message is sent, your neurons begin firing in an erratic fashion. And this is just one way that brain rot might manifest itself. There are many other potential ways, too. For example, certain proteins in the brain are responsible for maintaining its structure, but they do show that there may be something to the idea that when you die, your brain begins to rot. Now, unfortunately, there is not much research on the topic of brain rot. Most of the research has been conducted on animals rather than humans, and there is still a lot that we do and know about what happens to the brain after death. So it's hard to say definitively whether or not brain rot is real. If these proteins malfunction, the brain could literally begin to fall apart. First of all, the brain is extremely complex, and there are still many things that we don't understand about it. But there is enough evidence to suggest that there may be something to the idea that when you die, your brain begins to rot. What do you think? Do you think brain rot is real? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching. Even if brain rot isn't real in the literal sense, it is still possible that something happens to the brain after death that we don't fully understand yet. Secondly, brain rot has been reported in a number of different cultures throughout history. For example, there are ancient Egyptian texts that describe a condition in which the brain appears to be rotting. Similarly, there are ancient Greek texts that describe a similar condition. It's possible that these descriptions were based on actual cases of brain rot, but it's also possible that they were simply myths. And finally, it's worth noting that brain rot has been reported in both men and women, but it's much more common in men. This suggests that brain rot may be caused by something genetic, although there is no evidence to support this theory. Another possibility is that the breakdown of neurotransmitters could cause the brain to stop functioning properly. Neurotransmitters are chemicals that allow communication between neurons. Without neurotransmitters, neurons wouldn't be able to send signals to each other, which could lead to chaos throughout the entire brain. And finally, some researchers think that brain rot is caused by prions. Prions are misfolded proteins that cause other proteins to misfold as well. This can create a chain reaction that causes more and more proteins to misfold until the brain is completely broken down. Prion diseases are extremely rare, but they are also always fatal. This sends the brain into overdrive, which could explain why some people see a white light or hear a loud noise when they die. At least not yet, but there is evidence that similar things happen in other animals. For example, there have been cases of cows and sheep dying from prion diseases and then their brains began rotting. In some cases, the brains of these animals had to be removed because they were too dangerous to consume. In addition, researchers have discovered a gene called E. coli that causes normal bacteria to turn pathogenic or disease-causing. Researchers believe that when E. coli turns pathogenic, it causes the body to begin rotting from the inside out. Finally, there are cases of people who appear to have suffered from brain rot. There is one case of a woman who died at the age of 47. She had no known medical conditions and was in good health up until her death. During her autopsy, it was discovered that she had died from a massive stroke. But what was strange was that during the autopsy, her brain literally crumbled to dust. Her doctors were baffled and had no explanation for what had happened. In another case, a man died at the age of 29. During his autopsy, it was discovered that he had a rare genetic mutation that caused his brain to degenerate. His brain was completely rotten and looked like a shriveled up piece of liver, but it gets weirder. Some scientists hypothesize that after this final outburst of energy, your genes go rogue. The genes that controlled your behavior while you were alive suddenly have no oversight, and they begin sending messages that are not in your best interest. In fact, they begin to work against you. To answer this question, we first need to look at what happens to your brain when you die. Your body is composed of trillions of cells, and every single one of those cells has a nucleus. Inside the nucleus, there is DNA that controls all the functions of the cell. It's like the captain of the ship that dictates what the ship will do. When you are alive, the DNA inside the nucleus of your cells sends messages out to the rest of the cell on how to function. These messages tell the cell to grow, replicate, and carry out its unique purpose. The instructions to do these things are called genes. Genes control everything from eye color to behavior. You could say that genes determine who you are. When you die, the captain goes down with the ship because the mechanisms that maintain the body cease to function and the body begins to decay. This is where the idea of brain rot comes in. Your genes begin sending messages to your brain and nervous system to break down and disintegrate. In other words, your genes begin to rot your brain. One way they may achieve this is by turning on enzymes. Enzymes are biological catalysts, meaning they speed up chemical reactions. Your body has many different kinds of enzymes that do all sorts of things. For example, pepsin is an enzyme found in your stomach that helps break down food. However, enzymes can also break down parts of the human body itself. One such enzyme is called caspase. Caspase is an enzyme that breaks down proteins in the human body. Normally, caspases are kept in check so that they don't break down important parts of the body. But if something goes wrong, caspases can go rogue and cause widespread apoptosis, otherwise known as programmed cell death. Apoptosis is a natural process that occurs in the human body in which a cell intentionally breaks down and is reabsorbed into the organism. Think of it like cleaning out the trash. Cells that have become damaged or are no longer needed by the body undergo apoptosis. Normally, apoptosis only affects cells that are sick or damaged, but if caspase becomes unregulated, then apoptosis can affect healthy cells, too. Healthy cells can break down and die when they shouldn't, which would certainly cause problems for anyone. So if your genes are in control of caspase, and if caspase is in control of apoptosis, then it stands to reason that your genes could potentially cause you to die through apoptosis. Now, thankfully, there is no evidence that any of these processes actually occur in humans. These stories are all very strange and disturbing, and it's hard to say whether or not they are truly examples of brain rot. However, there are a few things that we do know. All in all, the jury is still out on whether or not brain rot is real.